that's when we start to not only lose our culture, that's when we lose our identity and what we've already built as a program. And to be able to continue to have that success, we have to continue to build onto that. And the hard part about that is, at times, as much as we don't like to think about it, there will be times where there's going to be real rebuilding phases because of us being a college program. People are going to end their careers. So it's like, that's when the mix of all those different types of classes and all those different types of leaders and even all those different type of kind of cultures around the world, that's what makes every different part of the culture that we built.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. On this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
We had the Arizona Player of the Year as our potential shortstop this year at Crown. He might be one of the most humble individuals I've ever met in my life. There's not many guys that I met that put his nose to the grindstone like him. And that's something where it's like, when we saw that, it was like, this is a no-brainer. There's guys that we brought in and continue to bring in and always will bring in that are going to fit that mold.
Yeah, sure.
But then at the same time, you always have that kind of voice in the back of your head like, oh, maybe I need 60 guys. No, you don't need 60 guys. You want 60 guys. But does your culture need 60 guys?
Right. To be able to reach the highest levels of this game, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
Today, we're joined by someone who quickly built a reputation as a teacher of pitching, a recruiter, and a coach who is passionate about developing players the right way. Ryan Vondracek is a former collegiate left-handed pitcher who had opportunities to continue his playing career overseas, but instead, Ryan felt a calling to step into the coaching world full-time. Since then, he's made an impact at multiple levels of the game. Ryan previously coached at Anamosa High School in Iowa, where he helped lead the program to 3 straight sub-state final appearances, something that hadn't been accomplished there in more than 50 years. Today, he serves as an assistant coach at Crown College in Minnesota, where he oversees recruiting and arm care, helping develop the next generation of college pitchers. He's also the head of pitching operations for the Minnesota Renegade organization, working with players on everything from development to durability. Ryan brings a unique perspective on pitching development, arm care, recruiting, and the role faith can play in coaching and leadership. Let's raise the standard and let's get into it. Welcome to Clearing the Bases, Ryan.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I mean, I love talking to younger guys that are just getting into coaching, to get different perspectives on things because, let's face it, I'm not a spring chicken. I've been around a long time and I like to hear what the younger guys have to say. So let's let's hit it. So give us a little bit of your background on your journey from when you first started. I don't care if you want to start little league, high school, whatever, and then take us up to where you are now.
Absolutely. So born and raised in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Um, Only child, so a little bit different perspective than a lot of people. So when kind of mom and dad are out at work, you got to kind of find a buddy to play catch with, or at times your best friends even might be a fence. So you kind of just got to make things work. But been playing since I was 4. I kind of felt like there was a gravitational pull towards the sport from a really, really young age. You see a lot of kind of parents when their kids are younger throw the ball nice and easy and things like that, and it was like, okay, you're going to learn right away. You're either going to wear it or you're going to catch it, and I think same thing with I was getting thrown high school pop flies at the age of 4, and it was like you're going to figure it out eventually. So I think just from a development standpoint, I think that just kind of kick-started it from there. Um, so played all the way, then went to high school. Once we kind of got into high school, it was a little different. I was a little bit undersized, so it was one of those things where I really had to rely on kind of the ideas of pitching more than I knew I wasn't going to blow up past guys. So I think that was kind of the where things fell into. If I wanted to be successful, I needed to know how to spot up, and once I knew how to spot up, that's when my opportunities would come. Um, so being not the tallest guy, even as a senior in high school, I think I was 5'6".
Wow.
So it's one of those things where opportunities are going to be very slim, because from a projectability standpoint, I wasn't a guy where it's like, oh, off the radar, like this guy we need in our program. So it was one of those things where I really had to kind of hone in on the little details of pitching and be like, okay, this is how I need to tunnel. This is how I need to kind of sequence things. So once I do get in those spots where I'm up in counts, I know how to get outs, even if it's like my fastball at the time might have been 74 because I didn't understand how to use my body. After high school, I did have a junior college opportunity at Hibbing, Minnesota. I was there for 2 years, being coached by a guy by the name of Bob DiNucci. He is now a assistant junior college coach in Kansas. So I had 2 years under him. While I was under him, it was kind of one of those things where he really decided and was with me on kind of if I wanted to make that next step into a 4-year, he would make that happen. And I'm truly grateful for and blessed for that opportunity that he gave me, with the platform he gave me, and understanding that there's a lot of things in this sport that people can lead you in, but it's also how much work do you want to put in to then be given that chance. And I think that was something that has stuck with me through not only my whole playing career, but now in my coaching career. It's one of those things where it's like there's so many guys who want to be great, but they don't understand how to be great. So how are we going to let them in on kind of those ideas and not lead them down the path we did, but at the same time be like, this might have worked for me. That's that. I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but it's like I have ideas that maybe, or from a perspective of being blessed with those opportunities, kind of having, I guess on paper you can say a little bit better career than average, and how I was able to go about that, not being the biggest guy, and understanding how those little things did impact myself. So after Hibbing, I had a lot of opportunities. I decided based off of not only from my faith journey, but also just kind of the idea of where I saw the Crown College program going in that direction. I decided to go to Crown for my last 3 years. Was able to win a UMAC championship there, made a regional appearance. We got a little bit unlucky. We as a kind of younger program, at least from a success standpoint, we got Whitewater right out the gate, and that's a three-headed monster that you don't really want to encounter.
Absolutely.
But I think it was one of those things where it's like we held with them for a little bit, so it gave us a lot as a program. Being a younger program, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, how are we going to stack onto that? And us losing quite a few pieces, and you as being a high school coach, you know as well, it's like every team's going to be different, right? So how am I going to continue that idea of the culture to be able to continue to have that success? And I think us is from seeing it as a player, us going 4 consecutive years to our championship game in our conference, I think that just speaks dividends to what we've been able to do at Crown and what we're continuing to be able to do. And then I think that's also something where it's like, until the guys are gone in-house, you don't actually know what their impact was.
That's a very good point.
So being kind of having that type of leadership role and now kind of using it in a different lens, it's okay, I had all these guys around me that I was able to piggyback off of as teammates. Now I can call them, but it's not the same. So it's like, how am I going to be able to do that from my kind of different perspective and be able to give everything that I did as a player now as a coach? And I think that's something that I've been able to continue to work on. But I think the big thing for me is like, there's a lot of things in my life that I've been blessed with that I've been able to figure out right away. And the best opportunities and the best coaches figure it out over time. And I think that's something that I'm really trying to lean into, where it's like, yes, you might have a very in-depth outlook on this game, even at my young age. But at the same time, it's like there's so much that I can take from it just from like the different generations who have played it. And I think the opportunity at the ABCA, when I went to that for the first time, that was like eye-opening, because like it was guys that I've had who I've watched on TV for years. Like Tim Corbett was walking by with a coffee, and I was like, oh my, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So it was like a kid at a candy store, but it was also like a lot of stories, and it's really cool to be like seeing the guys who have done it at the most successful clip. They're the nicest guys, because they understand like there was so much to get them there.
Yeah. But
then you see these like a lot of the younger guys you see who have had these opportunities really early. They're like, oh, I'm already here. So it's one of those things, like it's really cool to see all the different things that are going on. It's cool to see how many young coaches are getting into the sport who are extremely talented, who have either been players or even guys who haven't been players. Like, I think even the analytics side of things has opened up so many doors that we never even thought about. So I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but...
No, I think what you said is really, really important, because basically what you were talking about was ego. Okay, so when, you know, in what you recently said about meeting high-level coaches that have been really successful and they're nicest people in the world, because they don't have any ego. Okay, whereas the young guy comes in, you know, like you said, yeah, I made it already. I made it. Well, you know what? Anybody that's been around for a long time understands that eventually you're going to get kicked in the butt, and it's going to knock you down a little bit, okay? So you better get humble and then, you know, learn to be like the successful coaches, be a lifelong learner, okay? Because we're always constantly learning. You know, I mean, like I said, I've been in this game a long time, and do I know everything? Not even close, okay? So I'm always learning, and I think that somebody like you that understands that, no ego, no thinking that you're the best thing on the face of the earth. Well, you're going to go far because you understand what you need to do.
Absolutely. And I think it's also like, it's one of those things, if you get into coaching, it's because of the coaches that you had prior.
Yes.
And it's like you've seen those type of examples, and you're like, there's things that this guy did extremely well that I know that I can build off of. Or there's things that, hey, I didn't like this at all. I'm not going to add this.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it can also be a trial and error period. So, like, there could be things that you didn't like at all as a player, just because when we were players, maybe our ego was higher than it was once we do end kind of our career. And we think back and we reflect and we're like, oh, why was I that type of person in these situations when I personally was at my best? I didn't think about anything. Like, I just went out there and just enjoyed the game. But then there would be times when I was younger and kind of in that junior college realm, like, oh, man, I got to get to a spot. Like, this has to be perfect. Like, my shin's not this direction, and I'm not able to hold tension where I need to. Like, the ball's not going to come out of my hand well, then that velo's not going to be good. And then, but then then you take the gamesmanship out of it. You take the love of the game out of it, because then you make it more everything statistic based.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the best things of advice that I learned that I was given last year was from the guy that I'm coaching with, coaching under now, Colt Sedbrook at Crown, and he said, I was in a game and it was right before the playoffs, and he goes, I wanted to get a younger arm in there, because I knew we needed him in playoffs. And me kind of being a vet, I was like, I know we need that arm, so I was going to give him that opportunity. Coach Sedbrook thought that I was padding my ERA to keep it as low as possible. and he goes, I know you stare at that number. And as a younger guy, I did. Like that, because it was like, if I didn't have this, I didn't know if I was giving my best to the team. But then I also thought about it, and I was like, that was probably a really big hindrance, because it was, if I don't do it this way, I'm going to impact it in maybe a negative sense, when at the end of the day, there's 7 guys behind me and there's 1 guy in front of me. And at the end of the day, sometimes the most influential guy on the field is the guy who's calling my pitches.
Yeah, sure.
So I think it was one of those things where it's, even those little lessons like that, it's like, okay, so now kind of looking at it from a lens of being a coach, it's like, okay, maybe me and you didn't see eye to eye the whole entire time, but now that I'm retired, I'm like, I know you probably did everything the correct way. I didn't understand it because of how I went about my business as a player.
Right, because let's face it, a lot of players tend to be, they're looking internally, okay, instead of looking at the big picture. And now, as a coach, you have to look at the big picture. Okay, so again, I've told my players this many, many times, and we'll use, hitting as an example. I really don't, I do care what your batting average is. Obviously, it can't be, over, so it has to be something. However, I care more about what's your batting average with runners in scoring position. How many RBIs do you have? Can you move a runner when we need a runner move? Can you bunt? There's all of these things that, sacrifice bunt doesn't raise your batting average. Okay, fly ball to right field to bring a runner in doesn't raise your batting average. But man, you mean a lot to me.
I think that's the big thing too, is like, there's so many awards now at the college level, but the only guys you really ever see get those rewards are the starters. Like, you could be a lockdown closer and you have to be the definition of the best closer in the conference to get any love.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing with utility guys. Like, there'll be guys who are going to be in 40 to 50 games a year for you. They're never going to get their name called just because they're not spending enough time in one position.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing for a lot of relievers, because there was times when I got moved to as a reliever, and I was a starter my whole career, and I was like, okay, so I can take this two ways. I can take this as coach really doesn't like me this year, or I could take this as, okay, maybe I haven't been the best version of myself for the team. How am I going to be able to kind of fall into that spot that they need me to be, and say something does happen in that rotation? I've stacked my days, and I know exactly how I'm going to go about my business, that once I get my opportunity again, I'm not going to lose it.
Yep.
And I think that's something where, unfortunately, with the transfer portal, it's like, hey, I'm not getting my opportunities right away. I'm not going to see it out. And with the idea of the transfer portal as well, and you know as much as I do, growing up when I was in high school, it was you sat for 2 years and you watched the guy in front of you and you learned. And now it's like, if I don't play the second I get on the field, I'm going to bounce.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's so hard, and why things need to be so kind of, I guess, cookie cutter now with the idea of culture. It's like, we have to set it early, because even when you're not playing, we need you to understand, like, your importance on the field maybe might not be in front of the lines, but it's behind the lines, and the guys on that side of the lines, you're cheering them on to then get your opportunity. But I'm not able to trust you on the field until I can trust you in the dugout. And I think that's a lot of things that people aren't thinking about, because of maybe all the different options now, and like, oh, I could go here for this, or I could go here for that. And I think what we've been blessed with at Crown is we're a hard-nosed group. We've been a hard-nosed group. Our coach, Coach Sebrook, likes to joke all the time, from a facility standpoint, compared to every Division III in the country, on campus, we probably don't have all the bells and whistles you're talking about. But the success that we've been able to build is based off the people that we bring in-house.
Yes.
And once we lose that type of tension, where it's like, I don't know if this guy wants it as much as he used to, he wants all these crazy things, that's when we start to not only lose our culture, that's when we lose our identity and what we've already built as a program. And to be able to continue to have that success, we have to continue to build onto that.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that is, at times, as much as we don't like to think about it, there will be times where there's going to be real rebuilding phases, because of us being a college program. People are going to end their careers. So it's like, that's when the mix of all those different types of classes and all those different types of leaders, and even all those different type of kind of cultures around the world, that's what makes every different part of the culture that we built.
Yeah.
But if we have, say, I know there's a lot of kind of smaller colleges where it's like, I just want to stay on this side of the region. Well, it's like, you're not expanding out, and you don't get to understand baseball from different point of views. So am I doing a hindrance for my program, or am I doing a hindrance for kind of my guys being able to see cultures within the game of baseball? So I think that's something where we've been able to, at Crown, really kind of dive into. We got guys from Australia. We got guys from the Netherlands. We're talking to guys over in Ontario. We've had guys in the past. Obviously, being a JUCO guy, I've had everywhere. And that taught me so many things, being a kid from Iowa, that I probably wouldn't have, if I just would have stayed kind of, say, a Division III or an NAIA round in Iowa. It would be like, I don't know if I'm getting all that culture and all that exposure of all these different lenses of baseball that now I'm able to tap into and be able to have those connections and be like, hey, I have a guy who maybe moves like this, and it's a guy that I played with from Puerto Rico. So it's like, now I can tap into that and be like, how did you learn this way? This is how I know this is how my guy needs to learn. Or our pitching staff as a whole is getting behind in these counts. You were very successful in these counts because you saw it from a different perspective than everyone else did. How am I going to tap into that? And I think that's things as coaches where we really try to never reinvent the wheel, because I don't think that's the right thing. But I think the definition of what we do is, if we're able to tinker with the best of them, we'll have success. Yeah. But if we change things, that's when we're going to run into holes, because then we're turning everyone into robots.
Bingo. Yes, we want to create athletes. We don't want to create robots, without a doubt. And, in order to do that, you have to give the players freedom. You have to give them freedom. Otherwise, like you said, they're going to become very mechanical. But something that you were talking about, like with the culture, which is very, very important. Okay. And, I've seen it, well, my last two stops. So the last high school that I was at, when I got there, no culture. Now I moved on to a JUCO and no culture. Okay. So how do you do it? And basically what you just said, what am I looking for? So, I'm looking for, because you have to remember, the program is not good. It's been bad for years. They won 3 games last year, 2 games, whatever. The kids come and go as they please. And it's like, whoa, it was a real eye-opener for me. Right? So I said, okay, well, how am I going to turn this around? And again, like you just said, I'm not necessarily going out there and looking for the best athlete, the best player. That's not what I'm looking for right now. What I'm looking for is guys that are going to help me set that culture. So I want blue-collar type guys. I want guys that'll eat dirt. I want guys, and again, they may not be talented ball players, but that'll set the culture so that we could start bringing in talented players, and then they'll know how we do things.
Absolutely. I think so, as well as both of those coaching opportunities with Renegade and Crown. I actually have 3 jobs. My third job is I stock shelves 40 hours a week at a grocery store from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So sleep is few and far between, but at the same time, so I'm able to listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's how I'm able to pass my time. And PJ Fleck had something that stuck with me. He said he wants to get when he's recruiting someone, he doesn't call them recruits. What he calls them, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I think it was, how can this guy apply to my system?
Love it.
And how he put that was, I need to get intoxicated with the person, and I need to stop getting intoxicated with the talent.
Yes, I agree with that 100%.
And I think once we do that, so even on our recruiting calls, being a guy who went through quite a few of them as a JUCO guy, it's like, you understand if someone's calling you just to do business and be transactional, or if they're trying to be transformational.
There you go.
And I think that's something that on the forefront, us as coaches, we always think about, but then at the end of the day, we always have that thing kind of looming over us where it's like, oh, but this guy can get me 10 wins. He's a terrible person, but I know he can give me 10 wins a year on the mound, and it's like, is that worth it? Is one guy being that talented? Being at the Division III level, it's one of those things where I'm blessed with the opportunity where I can talk to guys who throw 79 and can spot up, and I can talk to guys who are 91 to 93. And I've been able to recruit both sides of that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't get the same answers from the 91 to 93 that you would from the hard-nosed ball player who may be a freshman, who may be undersized, who's never been coached. I played with guys who were 78 to 79. As I told you, I came in at 74, and I ended my career almost touching touching 90 at only being 5'9". So I know it's possible, but it's what is the guy on the inside, not the guy that I see on the outside.
Right.
How am I going to be able to tag into that and really be able to be like, that's the guy that I need. And then once he understands, like, another thing that we really like to talk about is, and it's a double-edged sword, and I hate to bring it up in this way, but individuality is extremely important. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people who fall into a culture and they don't bring who they are into that culture. What they do is they try to hide behind what they think that culture needs, but what that culture needs is the guy that we recruited. It's not the thing that was already there. And if I personally or our coaching staff are recruiting you, we're going to have those crazy conversations. I have a guy that I'm recruiting right now that he sends me, he's a cook, so he sends me his meals 3 days a week. And he's like, why do you want me to do that? I said, because that's your love. Like, I don't want to take away your love. Like, my mom always used to joke about, so I'm a third degree black belt in Taekwondo. So before I went off to the mound, she always joked if I did a Taekwondo form in the corner and then key up as loud as I possibly could and just scare the living daylights out of the opponent, what that would do. And it was always one of those things where it's like, I think you've already been able to tell I'm not a hesitant person, but even then I was like, I don't know if that's the way that I need to go. And we just pigeonhole our guys in these things where it's like they cannot be themselves. Yeah. And if they're not able to be themselves, then we're not going to get everything that we need to out of them.
Yeah, like you said, you know, you have to maintain your personality. And, you know, that's the great thing about it. You know, not everybody's the same, but you have to maintain that personality within the culture. And, you know, really, let's face it, what is culture? Culture is the way we do things. That's really what it is. So, yeah, every player is not the same. We don't coach every player the same. Yes, we want to see that individuality. We want to see that person come through just within the way we do things. Very simple, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of those things where it's like, I love the relationship between culture and standards. But I love the idea when standards are set out where there's slight wrinkles where you're able to still be yourself within those. Yeah. If it's completely cookie cutter, you're going to lose a lot of guys.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things that even, I mean, I've seen these type of conversations at the ABCA, and it's like, even Coach Corbin talks about it all the time when he hops on podcasts, or Coach Bianco, and those are two of the most respected to ever do it.
They're the top of the hill.
Yes. So, but their relationship and like their stories and things like that, and how they relate everything back to baseball, I think that's things that a lot of us coaches, we need to look at and be like, okay, so these guys are prioritizing this, and they're in the classroom 5 to 6 days a week doing culture things, and they're at the top of their upper echelon individuals before their upper echelon coaches.
Yeah.
So I think that was something with all the podcasts that I've listened to personally, that within our coaching staff, I wanted to take the leap, and so I went through the Brian Kane mental performance mastery class.
Great.
And so being a guy who hopped on the staff a little bit later, because I hopped on mid-fall, because just with kind of the Renegade job and everything like that, I didn't 100% understand how much time that I would have and be able to kind of use that and be beneficial for what I know that our players needed, for what us as a culture needed. I didn't know if I me coming in as a coach compared to a player, if that would change anything, like what that dynamic would be.
Yeah.
But I think it all changed when I came to a practice one day just to come to a practice. And it was like nothing changed. And I haven't been there for months. And even the new guys, they're like, it was actually really funny. So they had trivia day the day before. And so a lot of guys that I've played with and a lot of guys who are there now, they didn't know me by my first and last name. They knew me by my nickname. So it was, as I kind of told you with the story of Coach Sedbrook, I'm blessed with the opportunity that I now hold the single season ERA record. So that was one of the questions. And so I showed up and I said, "Hi, I'm Bondi." And they go, "Who's that?" And so we had some other guys. We had some really, really heavy hitters that I was able to play with. And so they were all the answers because they're all 6'3", 6'1", just big dudes, but great guys.
Yeah.
And they were guys who were able to build the culture. I kind of stayed back and stayed to myself because I didn't 100% understand how they needed me to lead. And at the time, I think you've been able to tell, like, I've grown a lot as an individual. So I might not have been the most personable guy from maybe that type of standpoint. So I kind of stayed to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So while some guys are talking before starts, I was never that type of guy. I was always, at least in the beginning, I would have my headphones on. I wouldn't talk to anybody. And I had an hour and a half warm up, and that worked for me. But then I think about it and how much filler did I have within that hour and a half that I could have been making those genuine relationships.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had pitchers like that before that, just before their start, they want to, like you said, put their headphones on and chill. And, I let that go. That's fine. But, like let's say during practice, those same guys, were interactive with the rest of the team and, and their personality, showed through. But I think it's a little bit of a different mindset when you got to start coming up and you kind of want to just chill and, get yourself ready. But something that you said, too, that was really impressive to me is that you said you went through Brian Cain's course, okay? And I think that is so important as a coach. I think that is so important, and I'll tell you why. Because, again, even at my age, and we talked about being lifelong learners, it wasn't Brian Cain, but about, I don't know, it was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years, might even be, whatever, about 5 years ago. I went through a year-long course on mental performance so that I could better teach my players how to think, how to approach things. You know what I'm saying? So I tip my hat to you because you're being, a young coach. I mean, you just started and you understand the importance of that. That is, in my opinion, a lot of that is really what we do as coaches. The X's and O's. I can get anybody to teach them X's and O's, but who can teach them how to think? Who can teach them how to approach things? That's really important.
Absolutely. And I think that's an awesome segue into kind of, I knew I was going to be able to fit it in, but I didn't know when I was going to be able to fit it in. But how I look at us as coaches, what I think of us is we are teachers with a degree in baseball.
Yeah.
That's all we are.
That's
like, right. And the cool thing about that, just like every institution that you would get a degree from, it's always different. And there's so much to learn from. There's guys who are still playing in college, like they're going to be some of the brightest minds in baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there's also these kind of stigmas of, oh, they're so young, like what actually have they been through? And I think that's one of those things too, like as we kind of go back to the guys who've done it for the longest time and who are kind of on that pinnacle and who have they respect those type of people.
Yes. Yes.
But there's also a lot of, and it shows at the ABCA sometimes. There's even some maybe more experienced guys who are really still hesitant on letting that in because that's not what they know.
That's a good point.
But then at the same time, it's one of those things where if you take a step back and you really look into that type of individual and how they run their program, it's all transactional. It's not transformational.
Right. Which is going to bite you. But go ahead.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things at Crown that we're really, really trying to dive into is from an individual perspective. And this might be something that people don't even think about. How alike are you to your parents?
Me personally?
No.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just in general.
Yeah.
Like, there's conversations that I have where us as a coaching staff, we're all in there, and we're on the phone with a kid and his family. And his family's so down to earth. And then this guy just maybe not fit the same bill that the family is. It's like, I don't believe we need that in our program, because if he's this way around his family, the people he trusts, the people he loves, he's going to come on campus with complete strangers and be like, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. And it's like, you see that all the time with freshmen. We've been blessed with an opportunity where we had the Arizona Player of the Year as our potential shortstop this year at Crown. He might be one of the most humble individuals I've ever met in my life. There's not many guys that I've met that put his nose to the grindstone like him. And that's something where it's like when we saw that, it was like, this is a no-brainer. There's guys that we brought in and continue to bring in and always will bring in that are going to fit that mold.
Yeah, sure.
But then at the same time, you always have that kind of voice in the back of your head like, oh, maybe I need 60 guys. No, you don't need 60 guys. You want 60 guys. Yeah. But does your culture need 60 guys?
Right.
Does the faculty at your campus need 60 guys that are not going to be
bought in?
Yeah, not going to be bought into not only the baseball side of things, but the study side of things. Like us at Crown, like our big thing is like Christ is our center. Like it always has and always will be.
Yeah.
So are we bringing in guys who really already have a really good understanding with that? And I think that's one of those things too, where it's like from a school as a whole, from Crown as a whole, they love the guys who already have their faith on fire for Jesus. And I love that. But I don't think anything's more important than the guy who doesn't understand yet, who wants to understand. Because if he wants to understand something as complex as that and the life that Jesus gave for us, then from a baseball perspective, you know that guy's going to go die for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's something where we're continuing to dive into as well, where it's like, that's the guy we need to continue to find. Because that's the guy who's going to do everything possible to figure out how.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's face it. I know a lot of people in the baseball world, all over the country, lots and lots of people. The best of the best, for the most part, are faith-based. I talk to millions of coaches, and like I said, the guys who are really good on top of the game, faith-based, okay? So, you know what? While we're there, let's stick with that. So, tell everybody how faith influenced the way you lead players and the way you build relationships with your players, because it's got to be pretty powerful.
Absolutely. So I have quite a bit of a different story than most. So when I was growing up, in elementary school. Me not being the biggest guy. I had glasses in the first grade, and that's not very common. So there was a lot of opportunity for me to get bullied. And so that's a really big thing of my journey, and being able to see, like, being the guy in those kind of spots where it's like, I know if I meet this type of person, I don't want to be that type of person to others. So in that situation, I was then actually given the opportunity to go to a private middle school. And so from there, it was kind of, I was still hesitant because I didn't understand yet. Like, I moved because I thought it was the bullying thing. But now if I look back at it, I was definitely called to learn and understand this side of things. So whatever my path was in the future, and as many ups and downs as that goes, how am I going to be able to stay strong in what I believe in, or continue to learn in those types of things within my faith? Yeah. And when things do not go my way, personally, myself, unlike most, I was extremely blessed. I never had a major injury in my career. And I think that's from the gifts that God gave me, from the ideas of understanding that arm health and prioritizing those types of things and going about my business in a certain way now gives me that opportunity for when I need to help others in all these different types of lenses, I can. So, kind of being a Catholic guy at Crown, it's a Christian-based school, so it's a lot different. So you talk to just a believer compared to a Catholic. Oh, it's a weird conversation.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with Lutherans as well. Like, we have some Lutherans, and I mean, our big thing in the Catholic faith is the importance of Mary, and how we set her as the mother of all mothers. Then all these other kind of, I guess, faith formations are like, she's just a woman in the Bible. I said, no, she's not. But you have your way to look at it, and we have ours. And, like, so we have guys who, I'd say we have 7 or 8 guys who are Catholic, who, like, they'll go to chapel at Crown and be like, you know what, this just isn't resonating. So in the fall, my schedule was where I was able to, every Tuesday, I was able to have guys where I would invite all our Catholic guys to Mass every Tuesday. And then after that, we'd come over to my place, and I'd make a meal for them. Then we just kind of talk life. And I think that's a way that we're able to connect, where it's something we don't always think about.
Yeah. Like,
in the same way of kind of each of us having our own faith background, I think it's the same thing from a recruiting standpoint. We have a lot of guys who, I didn't personally know this. I didn't know how many people who go into college athletics are military children.
Interesting.
So it's one of those things too, where it's like, teach me about that, and teach me about how that impacted your life. And then through that, it's like, because I know there's a ton of ups and downs in that. And then that's a way that I can be like, okay, so what do you know about Jesus? What do you know about this? What do you know about that? And I had some really, really good conversations with the guys at the FCA booth. And just wanted to see kind of how they went about their business. Because a lot of them are coaches too.
Right.
Which was really cool to kind of see how they implemented Jesus into their programs.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted everybody to know that the FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I just wanted to put that so everybody knew what you meant by FCA. Yeah, I mean, but look, let's face it. Religion, and I really don't care what anybody's religion is. It doesn't really matter to me. But it's a foundation. Okay? So it teaches you to respect others, to help others, to care for others. And let's face it, as coaches, if we don't do any of that, we're not going to last very long. So there's that correlation that, you know, if you have that foundation and you're a coach, then yes, things will probably go well for you. Okay, so, and I believe that that's where it comes from. And I know that, like, my mother, who, like I said, we're going to her 85th birthday party this afternoon, she jokes with me. She calls me a heathen because I don't go to church. Okay, but I tell her all the time, Mom, you know, I still believe in Christian principles. I still preach Christian principles. I still talk to God. I do all of this stuff that, you know, I believe is right. I mean, I believe that just because I don't go to church does not mean that I'm not a Christian or that I'm not, that I don't believe in my faith.
No, absolutely not. Because it's one of those things where it's like you're doing how you feel like it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And if we take that away, then that's when we're pigeonholing you into you're only this if you're that. Okay?
Right.
And if we do that in one area of our life, we're going to do that in every area of our life.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things, too, where it's like, that's why it is so cool seeing how many guys are able to throw in different ways, different arm orientations. Their lower half can be stacked in different ways. Some guys are a pelvis forward guy. Some guys are a pelvis tilted guy. And it's like, that's why the ideas of pitching are so much fun, because it is you.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's the cool part about seeing it at the younger level and being able to work with those younger guys. I have an 11-year-old right now at Renegade that moves like a pro because no one's messed with him.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
And if someone messed with him, I guarantee you he would be robotic.
Bingo.
And so that's the big thing, especially for that we try to do at Renegade, is at least from the pitching side of things. There'll be times during tryouts, myself and one of our assistants will have 120 kids. And the cool thing about that is the assistant that is kind of overseeing everything with myself right now, he is a younger coach. So I'm able to kind of lead in on what I see from those, and then he can give me his perspective. And then from there, we can come up with a concrete idea of, okay, these are must-haves, these are must-not change.
Yeah.
Because back in the day before, and I think you can attest to this too, it was always, I need to land square. I need to be in a fielding position. Now, if we look at the research behind that, when I do that, the arm ends, and there's a lot of tension on that arm. So, like, his first throw, he's spinning off nice and easy, holding tension in the front hip. Everything's there. The arms just comes right back. I'm like, don't let anyone change that, because that's your movement profile. And I think that's one of those things, and I'm sure we'll get into that tangent a little later, but there's two different types of movers. There's aerial movers and there's terrestrial movers.
Yes.
Yep. And I've had a lot of very, very in-depth and very fruitful conversations with Matt over at Motor Preferences. So I'll just kind of give it a little bit more overview. I'm not going to get too in-depth with it because it's something that I'm still learning, and I don't want to kind of give that false information. But aerial movers are extremely light on their feet. Yeah. And terrestrial guys who use a lot more of the ground and who are usually some bigger, stronger kids. And that's how they move, because they know once I put pressure into the ground, I can get it out of the ground. Nate Headley, one of the really, really informational, talented hitting guys at 108 Performance. Chase Headley's brother.
Oh, okay.
So the big thing that he liked to stress for me, because I went to the 108 kind of, um, there was a sit down talk at the AVCA through 108 that was incredibly informational. And the big thing that he talked about was find people that move like you and figure out how I'm going to move in those same ideas, but in my own way. And I think through that, and him being a hitting guy, that was cool to hear from that perspective, because at the end of the day, it's very similar. Hitting and pitching, and at the simplest form, it's loading everything, it's getting stable, and it's rotating as fast as possible through the plane that I need to rotate from, that I personally need to rotate from. Now, that's the big thing, too, about a lot of hitting coaches. It's like, this might work for some guys, but this isn't going to work for everyone.
Right.
So, like, there's some things that have been kind of cookie cutter, where it's like, these things must happen to get this. No. All it has to do is I have to land, I have to be closed, and then I literally take my lower half out of it, and if the top half rotates how it needs to, in a sequential order, trusting the kinetic chain, that's how I'm going to have success. I don't need to be like, oh, I need to keep my knee in this position. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. I need to find my stability point. I need to figure out how to not make it a ground force. It's a ground reaction force. So how am I going to put everything completely from the top of my body down to the ground, out of the ground as much as I can, into the hand to get it through. That is all it is at its simplest form. And there's so many intricate ideas in front of those that we love to talk about and need to be talked about. But how am I going to talk about that to that guy who's going to understand that particular movement?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, everybody's different. We know that. We touched on it a little bit before. You can't teach. I mean, I would describe myself more as a hitting coach than I am a pitching coach, okay? I have 3 or 4 absolutes. That's it. And I tell my hitters right off the bat, I don't care how you do it, okay? I'll help you, okay? I don't care how you do it, but make sure, your head doesn't move. Make sure we're staying behind the baseball. Make sure we're staying on top when we're swinging. And I'll give them drills to help them achieve that. But I don't tell them, your feet got to be here. You can't be open. You have to start this way. No, some guys, and I'm not a big fan of, let's say, the open stance. I don't like it. But I have players that are more comfortable hitting that way. Okay, let's go. All right, I'm fine with it. I just don't like it. But, like I said, everybody's different. So we're getting close here. So there's a couple things that I did want to ask you. One thing is, and I think that this is really important coming from you because you're a young coach, okay? So if you could give one piece of advice to young coaches, or I'll even say volunteer coaches, guys that are coaching in like Little League and maybe travel ball, what kind of advice would you give them?
Unpaid opportunities can be your biggest opportunities. Don't let any door that you think could lead to something great close because you're too egotistic to not understand the why behind it. I think that was some of the best advice I ever received, and because kind of being a younger guy, kind of understanding the path, it's not going to be one of those things where if you're doing it for the money right away, you're not going to be successful because you're putting all that time and effort to how am I going to be able to get to this pinnacle instead of how many guys am I going to be able to touch through this? How many guys am I going to be able to have transformational relationships with? And I think it's one of those things that it's a lot easier for me personally at the college level just because of how I am able to articulate my words and kind of have them respond in those types of ways, and I'm able to oversee that. And I think that's really cool. From a Renegade side of things, it's a lot more difficult. So one of my things personally is like, I love the idea of really getting to know my guys from a perspective of things that you would never think of. So like, I'll ask favorite TV shows. I'll ask favorite video games. Then once that kind of happens, I'll be like, okay, so pretend you're this guy, and your front arm is a sword, and I need to keep everything on plane, and then let my body rotate. Or be like, one of the big things that has worked for me is things that you really dislike. So the glove's something you really dislike, so instead of throwing it to the glove, they throw it through that object. A lot of guys don't understand how to rotate the back foot off the mound, they just come up. So it's, hey, that back foot's in quicksand, I'm in Maze Runner, I need to get that thing out of it. Or, hey, I have gum on the bottom of my shoe, if I lift straight up, it's just going to stretch. If I rotate out of it, it'll get out of it. So it's relating those things and concepts that they understand. And once I'm able to do that, then the rest is history. Right. So I guess kind of closing that up, it's, don't ever be afraid to hop into a subject that you know nothing about to help the guy where they're at that moment.
Well, I mean, in that case, one of the things that I always say is if I don't know something, and I'll, again, be honest, tell the player, you know what, I don't know, and I've done it, and I'll say, you know what, but tomorrow at practice I'm going to have an answer for you, okay, because I don't know everything. But, yeah, I mean, and the thing you said, too, about don't ever miss an opportunity because of money. Interesting, and I'll tell you a quick story, and I think I may have said this on the show before, but I'll make it really quick. When I got hired at Lord's High School, I had been hired. I was there. I was working through my practices. One day the AD calls me in and he says, don't you care how much money you're getting paid? I had already been hired. I was already working. So I looked at him and I said, look, I said, how much are you paying me? So he told me. So I said, okay, good. I got a practice going on. I'll see you later. And he was hysterical laughing. And I said, look, I know there's no money in baseball. I know you're not paying me tons and tons of money. Whatever you pay me is fine. So coaches need to understand that, you have to do this to be any good at what you do. You have to do it because you're passionate about it, not because you think you're going to make money. And I wish we had more time because I'd jump into this, but this is where travel baseball runs into their problems because they're in it for the money. They're not in it because they love what they're doing. Okay, and I wish we had more time because I'd love to, or maybe I'll have you back sometime because there were a few things that you had mentioned that I wanted to jump to that, but we'll pick that up next time. What's more important is what I want you to do is, where can people follow you? Where can they connect with you? Social media, all of that type of stuff. Give them that information.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it's Coach Vondy 25, and then on Twitter, it's Vondracek _Ryan.
And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you because they wanted to come to play at Crown, how would they get? Through social media, IM? How would you want them to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can contact me through X works fine, Instagram works fine. All my phone number and everything is on there. Email's on there. So that's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me.
Well, Ryan, I got to tell you, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this, and I wish you nothing but success. And listen, I just became a junior college coach, so I got players, that I think might fit into your program. You can get a phone call from me.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to hearing that phone call.
So thanks again, and listen, enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, I appreciate it. God bless.
I find it to be a breath of fresh air when you get a young guy like this. I mean, let's face it, Ryan just finished playing college baseball a year ago or 2 years ago, but it was relatively recent that he stopped playing and now he's on to coaching. And, a lot of things that Ryan talked about really impressed me because he gets it. He understands that your success as a pitcher isn't only about velocity. You got to worry about command, consistency, competitiveness. All of that stuff separates players. He knows that. Arm care. He understands the importance of daily routines, recovery, smart workload management. All of these things are essential for long-term health and performance of your pitchers and your players. So I think it's amazing when you get a young guy like that really understands, that really gets it, and he's working so hard to make all of these things happen. He understands about doing the simple things at a high level, consistency in mechanics, throwing routines, preparation, all of these things that, it's the simple things. Let's not, I kind of talk about it all the time where I say, we don't need to impress everybody with what we know by how intricate we can be or how elaborate we can make a drill or, just anything really. It's not necessary. Keep it simple, and Ryan understands that. Recruiting end, he's doing the recruiting at Crown, and he gets it. Where, what are we looking for as coaches when we're recruiting? We're looking for body language, work ethic, coachability, competitiveness, just as much as skill. And I would say in my case, even more so than skill, I'm looking for those things. So, I hope you enjoyed the episode, because I think there was a lot of stuff there that Ryan touched on that everybody needs to know and understand. Oh, and I don't want to forget too, okay? His faith-based coaching, okay? So he understands that coaching is more than baseball. It's about impacting lives, building character, and leading with purpose. And all of this comes from what I've learned over the years. It comes from, if you have a faith-based coach, well, that's going to build the foundation that you can then build your team and your culture off of. So I believe it's very important. And again, young kid understands it. It's amazing. So advice for players: control what you can control. Your effort, attitude, and preparation, all of that stuff you can control. Almost everything else you can't. Okay? And, let's just worry about what we can. Let's just worry about what we can control to have a good outcome, to perform better. Parents, trust the development process. Prioritize long-term growth over short-term results. I try and do this with my Evolution Baseball, and I try to get people to understand that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You are not going to take 6 lessons from a hitting coach and all of a sudden you're going to turn into Aaron Judge. It doesn't happen that way. Okay? It's a process. It takes time. Understand that, because it's so important. Best players and programs are built on discipline, consistency, and doing the little things right every day. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes, and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media: X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.